Yeah, I'm a retired partner at KPMG and Deloitte Consulting. Spent 33 years doing management and IT consulting, mostly for the public sector. Also an undergraduate and graduate degree holder from URI. So, and in retirement here, I'm just actually enjoying that. And also a member of several advisory boards and nonprofit boards, and a member of the Dean's Advisory Council. So really excited. We'll get into some of the details of what we're going to cover today, but I really wanted to, at this point, turn it over to each of the panelists here that you see on the screen, just to introduce themselves, give them maybe a little bit of background, maybe a minute each, and then we'll cover some slides, and then we'll spend really the majority of this session in the breakouts, where each of the students or groups of students will be married up with each of these panelists here, and we'll essentially do some practicing, and you're going to get a chance to practice maybe some of the things we talk about. Okay, super. So I'm just gonna, I'm not, Jessica, I'm not sure who on this list, I know some of the folks that I've already seen are on here. Would you just, I don't know if Kayla's on. I did see Andy. Kayla, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Would you give yourself give a quick intro here, and then Andy, we'll go to you, Jamie to you, and see if we can just go around the horn here. Okay.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kayla Kramer. I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager for Enterprise Holdings, or some of you might know us as Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I work as a recruiter covering the Southern New England territory, so Rhode Island, Connecticut, and parts of Massachusetts. I started with Enterprise 6 years ago in Florida. I've relocated for the company twice, and I'm here to hire for management trainee program and also for a management trainee internship.
Excellent. Thank you, Kayla. Andy?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I've done this several years in a row, probably about 15 years in a row now, so I've really enjoyed speaking to the students. My background is very varied. I'm an entrepreneur. I have owned my own promotional products company where we distributed picture frames with corporate logos on them. I sold my company to R.S. Owens, which is the company that manufactures the Oscars and the Emmys. After that, during that, I purchased an old mill building, rehabilitated it, and now and built another building. So I have about 35,000 square feet of commercial real estate. I manage about 500,000 square feet for a gentleman in the town of Warren who owns, quite a bit of buildings, and he owns water rower manufacturing exercise equipment. For the most part, I am now into real estate, but prior to that, I was in the promotional products industry for about 35 years as VP of sales for a $70 million company. So sales, marketing, real estate, entrepreneur is my background. Thank you.
Hi guys, I'm Jamie Verasa. Very excited to be here today. Vice President of Strategy at Schneider Electric, right down the street from you guys in West Kingston. I've been with them for quite some time, 20 years now, and have been fortunate enough to see a little bit of the world. I lived in China as well as in Germany, and hope over the next session we'll be able to bring some of those value props and those elevator pitches up to snuff. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Jamison Miller here. I think I'm next based upon the slide deck here. I'm a Vice President, Portfolio Manager with Washington Trust. I've been managing assets for a little over a decade now. I manage around $200 million worth of assets with Washington Trust. We have $6 billion under our purview. I'm a chartered financial analyst. Analytics and portfolio management are my bread and butter. I've worked for Morgan Stanley and Smith Barney, and when they were around, and Oppenheimer and Merrill Lynch. So anyone who has finance questions, feel free to drop me a line as well. Happy to chat about the industry.
Hey, Toonie, I think you're up.
I was kind of talkative before we kicked off. So hi, everyone. I'm Toonie Shartner. I am a combination of, I'm an executive director currently at that beautiful building behind me for District Hall Venture Cafe Providence. We provide spaces and programming for entrepreneurs and innovators to come connect to the resources they need to grow. And I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I do a lot of volunteering and mentoring at URI and other colleges and universities. And I put my LinkedIn profile in here if you scroll up in the chat, as well as my email. So feel free to reach out and connect.
Okay, hi, I'm Sandy Friedman. I am currently, I guess, semi-retired, stay-at-home dad working on a music-related startup that I've been kind of tinkering around with in my garage. And then I started at URI. I graduated with an MIS in accounting double major. So in between those 2 points in time, I've worked in public accounting, got my CPA, spent a long time. My career mainly focused on media and entertainment. I worked for Sony Music in several capacities, internal audit for many years. Then I went to Oracle, a large software company, got into very large system implementations. Then I went to a very small startup, kind of a dot-com-ish kind of thing, got married, and then I had a very varied career because my life changed a little bit. So I was a school teacher, I was working in digital publishing, a lot of different things. So I had a part of my career where I had long stretches at big companies, and then the second half of my career kind of jumping around. But I'm happy to be here today. It's my first time doing this, so hopefully I can be helpful to you guys.
Great. I guess I'm next, Sandy. I'm Ray Matthew, class of 69, URI, MBA 1973, URI. I was the chief financial officer of Providence Equity Partners for 25 years. While I was there, we grew assets from 220 million to 23 billion. We grew employees from 10 to about 250, opened offices in New Delhi, Hong Kong, London, New York, LA, as well as our home office in Boston, obviously. So I retired after 25 years with Providence Equity Partners, was retired for about 5 years, bored out of my mind. The guy I knew was looking for a CFO for his company, Insure My Trip. So I dropped him an email and said, look, I'm happy to work part-time on an interim basis. If you need somebody to fill in, and that was over 3 years ago. I'm still there working full-time. We sold the company, Insure My Trip, to Tokyo Marine, which is a big insurance company, headquartered obviously in Tokyo. We sold it on December 31st, 2019. And I'm still working at IMT as a standalone subsidiary of Tokyo Marine, integrating our systems into their systems. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Next.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Gervais, so excited to be here. First of all, with URI, I am the mother of 2 current students. I have a junior and a senior at URI. My background, I majored many years ago in international business and Spanish. Worked for an international airline doing sales and marketing, did operations and management for a retail upscale jewelry company in Puerto Rico, was sales manager for a cruise line, and I started my career in entrepreneurship in 2001, had my own bakery cafe for 8 years, sold it. Then I went back and got my MBA. I came to Rhode Island and directed the Women's Business Center for 3 years, where I help women start, build, and grow businesses. Extremely rewarding, very passionate about mentoring entrepreneurs. And in 2017, I co-founded a company called Artisans List, which is an online community platform where we connect old homeowners with craftsmanship, home restoration artisans, and curated products and services. I love to coach and mentor startups and students, so please reach out to me if I can help you with anything. Matt?
Good morning, everybody. Matt Longo. I'm with Prudential Financial. I graduated from University of Rhode Island in 2008. I've been at the firm now for 12 years, so ever since I graduated. My current role is in sales leadership. I cover 13 to 14 people that cover several different geographic regions. We average raising about $1 billion in assets across several different product lines per year. Very passionate, again, just like Mary, about coaching, mentoring. I've had a tremendous amount of opportunities to receive coaching and mentoring as my time growing in school and to my role now. And I'm certainly looking forward to giving back. So looking forward to meeting all of you.
Great. I mean, that's really fantastic, folks, and definitely appreciate you all joining this. For the students that are on the line here, you're going to find that a lot of, I'm going to call these folks mentors. You're going to find that a lot. There's a lot of folks out there who really want to provide help and assistance. And the key is, how do you ask? And so that's really a good segue into what we're going to cover today. And I know the title of this was, speed networking and elevator pitch and things like this. I think the title should really be The Art of Networking, because I know that the term networking a lot of times is misunderstood. People might think it means, something that's a forced exercise, something that I've got to go network. And in fact, it isn't used that way. The word networking shouldn't be used that way. It should be used as a way to interact. It should be used as a way to talk and converse with people. And so today's dialogue is going to be a lot about how you do that. So we're going to kind of talk what is networking and your elevator pitch. But you heard from everybody, each of the mentors here, listen to how they told their story. And that has been perfected by them over their years in business and the amount of experiences they've had. And actually, you can tailor that story to different audiences. And so I suspect that each of them may have done a little prep, or some of them may have had this down so well that they know exactly who their audience is and how to tell their story. So we're going to cover a little bit of that today. And also we're going to close out with, making the first impressions and some do's and don'ts. I'm going to cover a few slides, and then what we're going to do is we're going to ask each of the mentors here, the panelists here, to provide some additional perspective. And once we do that, we will go into the separate breakouts. We'll do some practicing. So this slide really talks about, think of networking as really relationship building. You're trying to build a connection, either by what you say or how you say it. So what I've got on this slide is really think of what networking, it's on the left. You want it to be mutual and helpful. It isn't, I'm a junior, senior, sophomore, freshman at URI, I'm an accounting major, and I'm looking for a job in accounting. That doesn't sound mutual. That sounds like an ask. And at some point you will want to make that ask, but you want to build a connection, trust, some sort of a relationship if you can. And we're going to go through those situations, perhaps how you can do that. You'll also see that networking it takes different forms. I have here formal to informal. You can be in a group and network, or it could be a one-on-one situation. We've all learned how to do this remotely. So how do you tell your story remotely versus in person? And there's some nuance to that. And then planned versus spontaneous. This obviously is a bit of a planned situation. I'm going to give you a quick example of something that was spontaneous, and maybe that would, I bet you each of the panelists have a story like this. Over my last 10 years before I retired, I spent a lot of time working with military service members who were wounded or wounded in action, essentially. And I'm a veteran myself, and I spent a lot of time figuring out how to help them kind of get their physical rehabilitation back going. And I had a relationship with some folks at the U.S. Olympic Committee, and we began developing some programs with their help that would take these wounded warriors and develop programs for them in their communities to help them kind of get back to normal. And it was a passion of mine. I went to many events down in Washington, D.C. with members of the Pentagon, and at one point, one occasion, I went to an event that wasn't planned. Somebody was supposed to go for me, somebody on my team, they couldn't go. And so I went. I wasn't necessarily prepared. I was in meetings all day in Washington and just kind of did a flyby, if you will. And I got there, and typically in these events there's a crowd of people, and then in this case, there was an award presentation or two. I get in, and it was really hot. It was a summer day in Washington. I was dying. I was sweating going in there. I went to the bar and just got some water. And there was a gentleman standing right next to me, and he was in a suit like I was. And, I just said, boy, I just took a cab here. I'm boiling hot. I'm gonna get some water. He asked me, did I want a drink? And I said, no, thank you. So we struck up a conversation, kind of who are you? And I started talking about some of this work that I had done with the Olympic Committee and developing these programs with wounded warriors. Well, the program got started, and don't you know that this person next to me was the senior official at the Pentagon who headed all of the Department of Defense Wounded Warrior programs. And they called him up because he was receiving the award that night. And they called him up out of the crowd after they gave him this award. And he knew he was getting it, but the idea was he was going to say a few words. And don't you know, he got up on it, and he recalled the conversation that we had. And he recalled it not having to do anything to do with me, but the fact saying that, hey, there are a lot of opportunities out there for those who've been wounded in action. And, he recalled that conversation. So that was a situation that I wasn't expecting, spontaneous. I sort of had my elevator pitch, call it, but we made this connection, and he and I, to this day, are still very, very close. So I bring that up to you because those situations happen all the time. And having your story that we'll talk about in a little while is going to be super helpful. I can already see several of the mentors chiming in here, which is great. And I want to blaze through these slides and leave them some time to give you some real live examples as well. So let's cover what we call the elevator pitch. And I don't want you to mistake this for sometimes folks who are and we have lots of entrepreneurs and folks that have been in venture capital on the line, where you have your elevator pitch and you're going in and pitching your company to get, capital or something like that. This is not quite like that, but it really says, how do you organize your thoughts to say quickly who you are and what you do, and really the situation you may find yourself in. And I've kept it really basic and simple insofar that in your situation as students, you may not have as many experiences as you think. And so this is a little bit of a framework that you can use to, when you find yourself in a situation, and we're going to practice this later, kind of getting organized, right? And knowing a little bit of a framework of how you can start the conversation and make that connection. And so it's, who you are, what you do, what you hope to do, and then the ask for follow-up or any help or assistance. And that ask, again, can be it's mutual. My daughter just graduated from URI, and last year she went to the career fair, and she said to me afterwards, Dad, I'm in marketing, and there weren't any marketing jobs at the career fair. And I said, her name's Megan. I said, well, Megan, how did you approach it? She said, well, I went in there and kind of went around to the booths, and I didn't see anything. And I talked to some people, and I asked them if they had any marketing opportunities. And they said they didn't. They had supply chain or finance or whatnot. And I said, well, how did you approach the conversation? And you can kind of see where I was taking the conversation with my own daughter. To say, go in and establish a connection, and maybe talk to them about you and let them say, I can refer you. So that's the easiest way. That was a little tip that if she used that, she could have practiced telling her story and then use that as a way to make a connection and potentially get a referral from that. Okay? It's just something for you to think about. Okay, great. So how to tell your story. So that's the framework. This is kind of the self-assessment. You know, what are you good at and what do you like to do? Typically, if you are well-grounded in that, you will be interesting. And why do I say interesting? Because you're going to have passion in what you say. You heard several of the panelists, you know, I heard serial entrepreneur. I heard passion for helping people with startups. I heard I want to do more mentoring and coaching. You heard the passion of those panelists come out when they talked about, here's what I'm good at and here's what I like to do. And when you can combine the two, it's really where you want to be. So I would say start with that and have that self-assessment of knowing what you're good at and what you like to do. The second is your personal brand. This is a little bit deeper, you know, and I put some teasers out there to say, are you creative, analytical, problem solver? We had a business chemistry at Deloitte where we, before we went to any client, we had a framework to know who that client was. We knew if they were, you know, a driver. We knew if they were, you know, a big picture thinker, because we wanted to make a connection and relate to them. But knowing who you are, knowing what you're good at, allows you to make a better connection. And then if you do your homework and know who you're talking to in those situations when it's planned, it might even be better. So this is preparation for you, knowing who you are and who you may be speaking with. And finally, in our last networking session that we did at the Welcome Center last year, this was the biggest piece of feedback we received from the mentors. Did they feel like the students could say, I know where I'm heading? Now listen, we're not expecting you to know your future, but it does go back to what are your strengths and what are you good at? So if you don't want to say, I don't know, you might say, I don't know, but here's what I'd like to do, or here's what I'd start to here's the direction I'd like to pursue, and here's what I'm good at, and here's where I'm finding that I can make a contribution. So things like that, I believe, are really good. So this slide is super important for you to kind of gameplay, put it on a piece of paper, have this ready. And when you do, you will be able to better be an interesting person. And when you're an interesting person, people will want to get to know you. And then you will make the connection, build trust. Okay, last slide, making first impressions. And these are simple, but they're also a little bit difficult because you got to practice them. I would say the first one, confidence, comes from the previous two slides. Having confidence in knowing who you are and what drives you. One example last year when we had the breakout, the one-on-ones, I had a student that said, you know, a senior at URI and I'm majoring in accounting. And they said that originally wasn't my passion. I mean, they told me that right off the bat. I started out in marketing, but I couldn't, it wasn't specific enough for me. I needed something that was a lot more structured, so I got into accounting. So to me, that showed a good choice, not between marketing and accounting, but the person wanted to make a decision, and they told me right away, and I knew that they were more a critical thinker, perhaps more analytical. And that story was interesting to me versus just saying, I'm a senior and an accounting major. They gave me that little extra spin that to me was very important and interesting. Smile, eye contact, greeting, and handshake. We practiced this actually a lot when we did the in-person event at the Welcome Center, because those nonverbal cues and gestures can make a big can make a big impression. I think it's, I don't know, within 6 or 7 seconds, I think that you can make an impression and you don't even have to talk. So just think about that, etc. Jessica, I think that's the last slide. Is that correct?